I'm going to share a little bit about my story. So for those of you who don't know me that well, or maybe, there's a couple of you that I haven't had the honor of meeting yet. Well, I'm Denise Michelle, and I am an award-winning transformational coach. I've been a coach for the last 8 years. I have a best-selling book out. I have another book that I put out last year, and I started my healing process about 25 years ago in my early 20s. And this was before I was diagnosed with a mental illness called borderline personality disorder. And I'll share a little bit more about that in a moment, but I just sharing like where I came from. I became a yoga teacher after leaving the corporate world in 2008. And I discovered that healing wasn't just for me, but it was something that I wanted to share with other people as they discovered themselves. I recognized that my story was somebody else's story. And this is why I have put myself out there on so many occasions, whether it's when it was feeling embarrassed, whether I was feeling shame or guilt or whatever it was never about me. It was always about who I was here to serve. I am a former yoga studio owner in downtown Los Angeles. I had that studio for 6 years. And I had a spiritual awakening in 2013 after a surfing accident. And I've basically been obsessed with learning, with personal development, with spirituality all this time. And when I became a coach in 2018 and a hypnotherapist in 2019, this is when SelfLove Mastery was born. This is when the Self-Love Alchemist was born. And now I am here teaching my best tips and tricks and strategies for living a life that you love while eliminating your blocks and increasing love and value in the world. Now, just a little background. Going back to borderline, I was this little girl who was born with this mental illness who spent her whole life searching for love. I wanted to understand the meaning of love because I came from a very chaotic and very dysfunctional childhood. And on the outside, I looked normal, but on the inside, I had no control of what was going on in my body, mind, and soul. I was struggling. As this little girl in the middle, this 6-year-old little girl, you would never guess that this little girl was already suffering at this age. You would never guess that this little girl was being sexually abused by her not her uncle, but her family friend, who was like an uncle to her. You would never guess that her spirit actually started dimming at this age. And this little girl would grow up starting to think that I'm not worth anything. By the time I was at this age, this is 11, 12 years old, I already started having suicidal thoughts. By the time I was 13, 14, I tried to commit suicide. And if you can just imagine being a child thinking, I don't deserve to live because I don't belong here, because I'm not lovable, because I'm not enough, because I'm not worthy. There's something to say for what society can do to us, right? Well, clearly I persevered, and I went through this path in healing where I have overcome some huge struggles to get to where I am today. Being born with BPD, it wreaked havoc in my life. And then in 2014, when I took off my mask, I wrote an article about what it was like to be living with BPD and how yoga saved my life. And I wrote this article because I knew that there was somebody else out there who, after my surfing accident really just ripped me open, that there was somebody else out there who was experiencing some of the same things. Maybe they had anxiety, maybe they had depression, maybe they had things going on inside them that didn't make sense. But since then, over a period of 14 years, I overcame borderline. And along with that painful and dysfunctional childhood, along with suicidal depression, along with various addictions and domestic abuse, and even going through bankruptcy, I have been through some crazy stuff, guys. And this led to the years, the decades of not believing that I was lovable, worthy, or enough. And as I climbed the mountain of healing myself, of creating success along the way, I reached a plateau. And then something happened about 6 years ago. Does everybody remember 2020? Who wants to forget 2020? That was my next big dark night of the soul. And this is when my life changed. This is the time that I got diagnosed with mold illness, where I had to pull way back from insane work hours. I had to let my body heal, my organs heal, and detox. And then COVID hit. And during this time, this was followed by 5 deaths in my family in 1 year, including my mother to COVID. On the left is my grandfather. He was, granted, yes, he was 100 years old. There's longevity in my family. But then after my mom died in December of 2020 from COVID, and just suddenly, and never got to see her, never got to say goodbye. Then after that, it was my dog, my soulmate. My father nearly succumbed to COVID. Right after that, he barely lived. And then 2 of my aunts passed away. And all of that happened in 12 months. And you can imagine, especially for a person like me, who literally spends her life helping others heal trauma, I couldn't even navigate this. And this is when life changed drastically. And I learned a new lesson in grief and how it was truly part of the human experience, that life is truly about love and loss. And I didn't give up. I kept going. And even when the steps were small, even when I felt like all I could do was bathe myself and feed myself in a day, that was enough. It was like chop wood, carry water, right? And I realized how over this time, maybe I overworked myself or burned myself out. And I gave myself a chance to reset. And all of this happening gave me the gift of becoming a true expert in self-love, self-care, and self-healing. Well, 2021 is when I found Tony Robbins. And I went to my first event, and I knew that he was there to help me work through the grief. And this is when I started shifting my reality. I started doing some crazy things that year, because at first it was all about the science of achievement. I was achieving lots of things, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And if you would have asked me at the beginning of 2022, Denise, by the end of the year, are you going to be living on a tropical island across the world and sell all your worldly possessions to do so? I'd be like, what are you talking about? But that's exactly what happened. For those of you who don't know, I live in Bali. I literally live on a tropical island. And I am living the life of my dreams, right? Because I made choices.